Everyone, for joining us this evening. We blocked out an hour and a half for this, if that's what came up on your meeting invitation. I don't think we'll need that much. I don't think we'll need an hour, but it depends upon questions and such. So we want to be sure that we can cover that for you. That serves me right for trying to use my laptop at the same time. So, but we'll go ahead and get started. So this is Mike Sarnowski. I think I'm looking at the list of names who are on there. I know most of you, and those of you who I don't know, I look forward to meeting you in the near future. We're going to spend some time going through the new Special Olympics North America coaching system, coaching education and development system that we've adapted somewhat to Special Olympics Maryland's needs and peculiarities, if you will, and the specifics of our program. So we'll go through a number of things here. The coach education and development, what is it about coach education and development? The new model, we'll talk through the roles and responsibilities, and hopefully everyone here has seen the model that was sent out. We've tweaked it slightly based on some input from one of the members of our sports committee, which I'll talk about in a moment. So it will look, there's just one adjustment, I think, to it from what you've seen. But we'll talk through renewals, coaches with existing certifications, the reporting that we're going to provide out to coaches in areas, the timelines, review of some of the existing education opportunities, and then some Q&A. Given the large number of folks that we have, we'll probably be doing that all through the question box, which hopefully everybody there is familiar with and can access for questions. So, but let's dive in. So, first, the movement and the advancement that we've had here with this system, we owe a lot of thanks and support to the SOMD Sports Committee. That's a committee of the Special Olympics Maryland Board of Directors. And you see the individuals there. Tim Leonard, who's the chair of the committee, is a member of the board. He's also the athletic director at Towson University. Terry Waters is also a member of the board of directors. There are 4 area leaders who are on the team, the sports committee as well: Bob Baker, Greg Mead, Mike Myers, and Rennie Springel. Hopefully some of those names sound familiar, and I think 1 or 2 of them might be on the phone with us this evening or on the webinar this evening. And then there's 3 staff members: Steve Bennett, Melissa Kelly, and myself. This team took what Special Olympics North America put forward and really looked at how do we need to apply it in Maryland, what adjustments do we need to do, and how can we move it forward. So, although I would hope it's obvious why coach education and development is important, but just wanted to touch on that. This is not us doing this or putting forward this model and this education system to just so we can check a box off. If that's all we're doing, let's just pack up and go home. Our athletes really deserve the best that we can possibly offer in coaching and in coaches. And the education and development system for coaches, for any professional, for anyone out there, ongoing education and development is critical. Whether, I know many of you on the call are teachers, and there's regular professional development to improve your skills, find out what's new, so on down the line. So that's one of the reasons there. It also then, by improving the skills and abilities of coaches, it improves the training that's offered to the athletes. Every reputable sports organization does this because it is important and because it benefits the participants in their program, and Special Olympics is no different. And again, the athletes deserve the absolute best that we can offer. So, so a couple points on the new model. It's very similar to what Special Olympics Maryland had been doing for quite some time. Again, it was developed by a team from across North America. As it happens, Jim Schmutz, our president and CEO, was a member of that task force that looked at this and gave lots of input based on what we do in Maryland and what we'd like to see in Maryland. We've made some minor adaptations. So if you do see the North America model on the Special Olympics international site or anywhere else, it may look a little bit different, but it should. The similarities are pretty solid. We're going to be phasing this in, starting with the summer game sports of athletics, bocce, cheerleading, softball, and swimming. And when I say phasing in, we're some of the timelines will be adjusted a little bit for those sports, and we'll touch on that when we get to that section. And it'll be in effect for all sports thereafter. And I should also say, because I know there's many folks here on the call who are members of one or more of the various sport management teams that we've had out there. The sport management teams, if you're not familiar with them, are groups of coaches, officials, games management team members, some athletes, family members. A lot of times folks have multiple hats, but they're out there year-round working on developing and improving what's offered for each sport. Special Olympics Maryland took a bit of time, but now has a sport management team, I believe, in every one of our official sports that we offer at the state level. And that was a necessary first step before we could really go forward strongly on a new model and really emphasizing coach training and coach learning. So we're very happy and very thankful for all the members of those sports management teams, those SMTs, in making it happen and improving the sports. So some roles, and here is the change that's there. That's an addition. So it was not clear on the original guide. You know, is there a role? Is there a place for the general volunteer, the mom, dad, sister, brother, or anybody who shows up and you have them running a stopwatch at the finish line? Sorry, showing my track bias. I'm still a track coach. You know, or handling the scorer's table at a basketball competition or something like that. And the answer to that is yes, absolutely. There is a role for that, and in that role, those individuals just need to meet the general volunteer requirements, which everyone here, at least who's a coach, I think everybody on the call is a coach, should know that you need your Class A form and the completed background check, Special Olympics general orientation, which is just a one-time thing, and protected behaviors training. And of course, the protected behaviors and the background check needs to be renewed every 3 years, as is the case. There's also now a category called sport volunteer. Those are sport assistant in the original model's terminology. This is for the individuals who are much more actively involved as a leader within your sport training program. The examples being there as a sport coordinator, a team manager, and other non-coach leaders. There could be any of a number of variety of categories or job roles, position titles, so on down the line. But you know, if this person's in a leadership role, they would be and they're not serving as a coach, they'd be categorized as a sport volunteer. And the only difference in terms of required education and certification for this individual compared to the general volunteer is that they also have completed the concussion course, which all coaches need to do. But that's the standard there. Let's see. And this, it's laid out on the slide a little differently from the sheet that was provided. But the next level is what we're calling the assistant coach level, or in the original terminology, a level 1 certified coach. These are folks, again, they're not running a training program by themselves. They are working under the supervision and the guidance of a head coach. And the requirements for these, you'll notice one other difference here is that this is split now. We have traditional Special Olympics assistant coach and a unified sports head coach. the traditional Special Olympics head coach, or assistant coach rather, I apologize, needs to meet all the requirements of the sport volunteer, but then also needs to complete coaching Special Olympics athletes, which is an exceptional course. Takes about 3 hours, whether you do it online or live, and that's provided there. For the assistant coach for unified sports, similarly has to meet all the requirements for a sport volunteer, and needs to have completed the course coaching unified sports. That's available via the NFHS, National Federation for High School Sports, or in person. Currently, Maryland has not offered this in person, but we will be adding it to the repertoire, if you will, of courses that we'll be offering. So again, in order to be named a coach, assistant coach, a coach in any way, this is the minimum requirement that there. And I think it sort of makes sense in terms of, given the content of these courses, is it's, you know, how do you coach athletes? How do you plan a practice? How do you work with individuals who have an intellectual disability, running drills, so on down the line. And having that kind of basic education is, I think, essential to be successful in a role as an assistant coach. And then the head coach level. And again, this is also split between traditional Special Olympics and unified sports with similar requirements there. So it's, again, meet the assistant coach requirements that were on the previous slide. And if you're complete a sports-specific course, either online or in person, that either SOMD hosts or is approved by SOMD. And we'll talk through the offerings, which are virtually identical to what was offered before. So for that, and the same requirements are there, you'll notice, to move from an assistant coach to a head coach for unified sports. You meet the requirements as an assistant coach and then complete a sports-specific course. All of these are well, we'll talk more about renewals in a little bit. So, and again, to be registered for as a training program head coach, or to be registered as a head coach for any state level competition, the person must meet these requirements. And for each delegation registering for a Special Olympics Maryland competition, you must have a head coach, a minimum of one. We strongly recommend that you have several folks who meet these standards, so that in case the head coach is sick or is unavailable for whatever reason, you have a backup there. So for the individual, quote unquote, individual sports like track, like swimming, bocce, so on down the line, you need one head coach for your program. For team sports, true team sports, such as basketball, cheerleading, flag football, soccer, and softball, there needs to be a head coach for each of the teams that are there. Again, we'll talk a bit more about this in just a bit, but yes, what that does mean, and to date, we have not had to do this, and hopefully we won't need to going forward, that if a delegation does not have a head coach who meets these standards, who has completed this, that program will not be able to register for a state level competition, and that includes the required qualifiers as well. And again, to be running and operating a program, it really is essential to have this level of knowledge and education. Going forward, and then down at the bottom, we really have, in Maryland, we haven't explored this yet. We'll look at it. Again, it's noted as being in development there, but a fitness coach course. So there are some programs that are offering, not as a competitive sport, of course, but for a recreation development and just general fitness, some fitness programs, which are excellent. They're wonderful. And so you can become a level 2 or a head coach for a fitness course or for a fitness program by completing the fitness course. And then there's also an advanced coach level. I'm sorry, I missed a letter there. That should be level 3, the model. That's meeting all of the level 2 requirements or head coach requirements, and then completing the Principles of Coaching course. Maryland's offered that a few times live. It's a full day course. Actually, it's designed to be a 2-day course, and we've compressed it somewhat into a single day. It's also available online through West Virginia University. Special Olympics International is currently revising it to have it available online separate from WVU. One of the challenges with having it at WVU or connected with WVU, and they do a great job, and we're appreciative of what they do, is it's only offered built around or around the semester timeline, because it actually is a credit course at WVU. So by separating it from that, it can be offered to anyone taking it whenever they want to. So more to come with that, but want to make sure you do that. So again, everyone need to meet those requirements. And renewals, we try to keep everything the same in terms of, or as much consistency as we can, and that is the sport certifications are good for 3 years. Just as the volunteer screening is, just as the protective behaviors is, and just as the concussion is. In fact, I would recommend if you're taking the or renewing your sports certification, you may want to go ahead and do the other 3 certifications all at the same time, so that they're all of your deadlines are synced up. There are too many folks all over the place for us to impose that and keep that maintained for all coaches, but you may want to do that. It'll cost us potentially a couple bucks from for an additional background screening. Excuse me, but that's fine if it makes things more convenient. So for renewals, for assistant coaches, again, these are the level 1, and to meet the standard there, they would need to have completed either coaching Special Olympics athletes or coaching unified sports. You can the level 1 coaches or assistant coaches can renew their certification by completing an approved general, if you will, education and development opportunity. They can. So it could be, we're not asking folks to retake the same course. That would be, I don't want to say it would be silly, because sometimes it's helpful for folks to do that, but to have that as the standard would be, it gets a little bit redundant there. But you could, if you have completed coaching Special Olympics athletes, you could take the coaching unified sports course, or any of a number of other general topics. First aid, so on. We'll see a slide that covers many of those in a bit here. You can also move up and become a head coach by completing a sports-specific course and meeting the standards for that. So that's the opportunity there. If you're a head coach and you need to renew, and again, this is really no different from what was, well, there's one tweak for what was required before, is you can renew your sport certification at the level 2 by taking an additional sport-specific course or opportunity, whether it's something that Special Olympics Maryland is offering, or if it's a pre-approved course or education opportunity, that's there. Again, as long as it's either hosted by Special Olympics Maryland or approved by them in advance, or by us in advance. You could also take a course on general coaching knowledge. And I should point out, if you take the sports-specific course, I know many coaches coach a number of sports. So take me as an example right now. I think I'm still certified both in track and soccer. If I was to take a sport-specific course in track to renew my track certification, it would only renew my track certification. It wouldn't affect my my soccer, because it really doesn't give you learning how to be a better track coach specific to that sport. Really doesn't help you in the other sport that you're coaching, generally speaking. However, the other opportunity that you have is you could take a general coaching knowledge course. And that would serve to renew or extend your certifications in all the sports that you're coaching. And again, I mentioned a couple of them when we were talking about the assistant coaches. It can be taking coaching Special Olympics athletes if you haven't taken that, or first aid, or a number of different other options there. And again, it would renew all of your sports certifications there. The one thing that is an adjustment here is that going forward, any coach needs to complete a sport-specific course essentially at least once every 2 cycles, for lack of a better term. So if what we don't want to have is someone who is coaching a sport and hasn't taken any kind of education opportunity specific to that sport in 20 years, because they've taken all general things. So that would be one that you would need to take again. It says once every 6 years. That's essentially once every 2 cycles, if you will. And then also the note there, if you renew your head coach certification, however you do it, whether it's by sports certification, sports specific, or by a general educational opportunity, it'll renew your level 1 as well. You might think, why would someone have a level 1 if they're already a level 2? Well, for as many of you probably are in the case, you may be a level 2 head coach for swimming and for softball, but you're only an assistant coach for basketball because you haven't taken any sports-specific courses there. And so here, by just continuing to advance your overall coaching knowledge, even if it is sports-specific, we're going to extend your that assistant coach level certification. So what about all these coaches who already have certifications? They will be honored through their current expiration dates. We're not going to make any change. We're not going to take it away. We're not going to suddenly say the certification that was good for you yesterday is not good for you anymore. So they'll go through their existing sport certification expiration dates. And again, the renewal process is virtually the same as it's always been. But there is the nuance that you have to take at least every 2 cycles. You have to take a sport specific. And then this second bullet here. We do have some folks who, because of various previous models for coach education and coach certification, may have been a coach for 20 years and never took coaching Special Olympics athletes because they were taking, courses again and again that are specific to their sport, which was fine. But here, if you are one of those coaches who has not completed coaching Special Olympics athletes, again, your current certification will continue through the current expiration date. But the one requirement would be to renew that. You would need to take the coaching Special Olympics athletes or coaching unified sports, just to make sure that you get that under your belt if you've never taken it. And so again, those courses both get rave reviews, and so that kind of gets everybody into, ultimately it may be 5 years, or well, I guess it would be 3 years till, in theory, everybody is definitely at this point and matching up. But we're willing to take that so that we're not making any kind of an undue hardship on folks. So one of the things that we will do, and we'll talk through a timeline momentarily. I don't know on your screen, hopefully you can see this. This is what we're calling a transcript. It's not for a single coach, it's for all the many coaches. I pulled this for Howard County. And what this shows is all the courses that these individuals have taken according to our records. So we can only put them in the computer system if we know that they were completed. So you can see, and it has, let's see if you can see my cursor. So the name, the program that they're with, or their group. Notice it also has, as part of the report, their concussion, their protective behaviors, and their volunteer screening is available there. But it tells what the sport was, or the topic if it was unified sports. Oftentimes this category here, which is a description, matches exactly the same. In some cases, like here, there was specifically a rules review webinar that was offered for golf as a recertification option. When that was completed, and where that was held, if we know where it was held, if that was recorded. So this is a report that we will send out in advance of the seasons. It'll go to so the Howard County one, using this since that's up on the screen, will go to the Howard County leadership and also to the coaches in Howard County. Initially, we're going to send it to every coach who's in there. As we get into the individual seasons and any reminders that we send, that'll only go to those coaches who we understand to be involved with the upcoming season, just because it can be a little overwhelming of stuff that we're sending out. There's also then the what we call the coach certification report, and this matches up, as again, this is Howard County matching back up. So this indicates what certifications these individuals have. So let's take Mr. Baker. So we notice Mr. Baker is Bob Baker. Many of you know him. He is certified as an advanced coach because he's completed Principles of Coaching at some point for cycling, for golf, for snowshoeing. And actually, I'm sorry, this says advanced coach for sport training. This would be actually the assistant coach. He earned his assistant coach certification. Their expiration dates here, again, his most recent course, I believe, was a first aid course. And so it renewed all of them for the same date. And then also, again, this report, to make things as convenient as we can, lists his certifications here. I don't think Bob has coached in the last season or two, so it's not a problem that his concussion is expired at the moment. He will certainly renew it before he returns to a coaching role. So again, these will be sent as well on a regular basis out to coaches. It is not realistic for us to send strictly the information for a single coach to that coach. I wish I could say that our systems are sophisticated enough that we can press a button and it does that. It's just not. Let's just be candid there. It's just not going to happen. But one thing that can be done is every one of your areas has an individual who is responsible for running and handling the area's GMS, or games management software system. That's the person who does all your registrations and does for training and for your registration for your competition entries and such. In some cases, some areas have multiple folks who do that, which is great. They can run these reports anytime they want. We've gone through, actually, we've done a couple webinars that had these included in them, and we've tweaked them a bit so that age is removed from these particular reports. We're going to be doing that for most of our reports where we can remove age. Potentially, ultimately, the only one that's really relevant would be for competition purposes and divisions. Excuse me. So we've tweaked it for that, but this is available. If you're a GMS person right now, if you go back to the webinar that we offered, offered it in September, and we'll post the slide deck again in a convenient location, which I'll point out to you when we get further on in this session. But anyhow, so these are available and will be sent out. So in terms of a timeline, this is what when I say we, I'm talking about the sports committee and staff came up with. And point out this middle column is when typically it would happen. It would need to be done. And then we're phasing things in for summer games, the summer game sports. So that's adjusted a bit here. So the sports management teams and sport directors arrange the live training, basically get the training courses lined up. And that will be something that they'll have them determined 6 months prior to the start of the season. The sport directors are working closely with them and nailing them down for the summer game sports. And actually, I know Zach was working on getting the kayaking one scheduled and so on. So that's underway. yes, we realize when we say before the start of a season, yes, we realize that the different programs officially start at various points. I didn't include it here, but we have established or determined, a given date that will be officially the start of each season. We'll provide that and share that with you. So as we're phasing this in for summer games, although I think we've already met this, will be February 1 of this year. So by next Friday, and there's somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 or 25 trainings already scheduled related to summer game sports. So then we'll send out those transcripts and rosters of sports certifications to areas and registered coaches. We'll be doing that 4 to 6 months prior to the start of the season. Again, we'll be starting that at the end of next week. We still have some cleanup we need to do in GMS, not so much on the level 2 certifications, but this level 1, going back and forth with the terminology. I apologize for that. Not so much with the head coach certifications, although we do need to put that label in there for all of those certifications. That's a little bit time consuming. But for the assistant coach certifications, that's not something we had in there previously. And so we're working feverishly around the plunge and other requirements to get that in and that posted so that we can get stuff out to folks by February 1. Again, I mentioned that the area GMS users can go in and pull that information anytime they want. 24/7, and I mean the system I think is rarely down, so it's there and available. If you don't have access to GMS, check with your leadership of your area, and if you need to pull or get this for a particular need, you have that opportunity. We'll be having live learning opportunities offered 3 months to 6 weeks prior to the start of the season. For summer game sports, it'll be through the end of March. So that, and we're offering them, we need, and coaches will need to get their certifications done prior to the start of their sports season because, and I'll be the first to admit that Special Olympics Maryland, we've been doing coach certifications way later than we should. But having a certification in the middle of the season doesn't really help a coach figure out and work to be a better coach for that season. So we're requiring, as the sport directors get these lined up, that they be offered prior to the start of the season. Again, we'll be notifying and sending this out. We may actually, I need to look at what we're sending. We may just collapse these reports and just send them out once a month to everybody. But we'll be sending them out at least on a monthly basis so that both the coaches and your area leaders can keep track of where they are. Again, your GMS person can go in and look it up, but we want to be sure that we've pushed this stuff out to you on a regular basis. And then the deadline for coaches to complete and submit their learning will be before the day before the start of the season for going forward. Again, they need to be certified ahead of time, and coaches or areas need to know whether or not they have a certified coach for their upcoming season or not. We don't want people to push it till then, but that will be the absolute last deadline or last day. For summer games, that's May 6th is definitely past the start of the season. We recognize that, but again, we're phasing this in. So for summer games in 2019, you'll have till May 6th for folks to do that. And in many cases, folks are already doing it, and with the particularly the online options and the large number of live courses and web-based courses that we have, or opportunities that we have, it should be relatively straightforward to meet that requirement. And I know there's a couple questions there, and I see a hand at least raised. We'll look at and go to the questions in a bit after I get through all this, because I may be answering your questions as we go through. So the coach education opportunities are posted on the new coach resource page. Hopefully folks have had an opportunity to go and see it. Actually, let me show you where that is. And this was just launched a little over a week ago. I will tell you right now, it is, I'm being kind when I say it's rudimentary, and I say that as the person who created it and is updating it right now. We'll be doing a website redesign, and so we're not spending a whole lot of time making it pretty and such. It's functional. And we will be moving away from, well, we have moved away from MySOMD. I don't know that there's anybody outside of a couple folks here at headquarters who liked it. So you can get the information that was there. You will be getting that through here. So if you go to the Coach tab on the Special Olympics Maryland website, there's a link here. There's also a link down at the bottom. Go to Coach Resources. And again, it's rudimentary, but it's there. So here you have for the sports calendar, which has been included in the area memo that goes out to area leaders roughly every 2 weeks. That's there. You can access and download it. Your links to all the webinars. Here's the links to actually the webinar. This is the one tonight, and then the one tomorrow night, which again, the content is the same. No need to attend that second one. And then a link to the coach education model. Right now, this does not have that adjusted general volunteer line in it. I'll have that updated by tomorrow. And then for each of the sports, well, this is the swimming webinars about the changes in swimming at summer games, head of delegation webinars, and then the preseason and and pre-competition webinars by sport with links. You'll also note that those have already occurred. You can download the slides from here. You can view the recording from here as well. Link to the coach opportunities, education opportunities that are offered. There's been some updates to this that we'll post within the week, but those are there. And then codes of conduct are here, and then link to all the forms and certifications that you would need, including the athlete medical there. So this is there. It's live. You don't need to do any kind of a password to access it. And hopefully you'll find it useful. I know I have found it extremely useful in just looking stuff up and trying to find things on my own. But anyhow, so that's there. And again, those opportunities are posted there. But we're open to all sorts of opportunities. Special Olympics is not the only one who offers good education. You know, we'll recognize those that we host or that we have approved in advance. Strongly check and see if something's been approved before you, particularly if you're spending any money on it. We do encourage areas to host courses and opportunities, but that needs to be with our approval. And that's just from a quality standpoint and such, and also keeping track to make sure that we get the information. As an example, without naming names, there was an area who hosted a couple programs over the course of 2018. We didn't know about it, and we never got the registrations for it, so we did a little bit of a rush to get some of them in the last few weeks so that they could be reflected in the systems. We can't update somebody's certifications and transcript without knowing that they took the course. So, and again, also there that approval needs to be for each opportunity. Note that serving as an instructor or a facilitator for a course counts as having attended the course. So if you have, a very experienced coach who can serve in that role, and Special Olympics Maryland would need to give the approval for it. But that's an opportunity, and it means that that person can learn, or it can get their certification while still contributing, and being very useful. As an example, again, a track person, the way that USATF, which is USA Track and Field, does their official certifications. The presentations are a series of folks, maybe 6 or 7 different officials who come and do presentations as a part of the overall learning experience and earn their recertification by presenting as a part of that, and it puts together a great course that way. And then just as a note, because we've had this question before, the preseason and the pre-competition webinars do not count as educational opportunities for certification purposes. The content of those is different. It's really not focused on coach education. It's focused on getting you ready with the information for the upcoming season. We'll be hosting live sessions of coaching Special Olympics athletes. We had been doing that a while ago. It kind of subsided as we knew this new model was coming. But we have 2 that are offered right now. We'll also be doing Train the Trainer, or T3 sessions for coaching Special Olympics sometime before the end of April. We don't have them scheduled just yet, so that we can have additional folks out there to do live sessions as well. We have a group of folks who went through and had presented coaching or had gone through a Train the Trainer for coaching Special Olympics athletes previously, and they still are able to do that. So we just want to kind of build that out. That said, we've been authorized to do Train the Trainer sessions for other topics as well, and so we'll be scheduling them as we go through. But do note that the Train the Trainer sessions are by either invitation by Special Olympics Maryland or by recommendation from the area director. It's not something that just anybody can step forward for, both in terms of having proper or appropriate presentation skills, but also in being an appropriate representative for Special Olympics Maryland with a group of potentially new coaches. So there is that process. We'll have stuff in the area memo to the area directors shortly on how they can nominate or recommend someone for that. So what are we going to offer for this? And these are performance objectives for each of the sport directors that are assigned there, that for what we're calling these large participation sports, where we have a large number of coaches that are listed there. They will have a minimum of 2 live sessions, in-person sessions offered, a minimum of 2 webinar sessions, and a minimum of 1, either an existing online course, such as through Human Kinetics, which used to be ASAP, or if that doesn't exist, and we know some of them don't exist, they'll record one of the live sessions or the webinar sessions and have a little test afterwards to make sure that the folks who say they completed the course actually went through it. So a minimum of 2, 2, and 1 for those sports. For what we're calling smaller participation sports, where there's just fewer coaches who need to get renewed each year. You see them listed there. It's a minimum of 1 live, 1 webinar, and making sure that we have at least 1 online option that folks can take whenever they need to take them. If their schedules don't allow them to attend the in-person or the webinar sessions. As far as locally popular sports, those are going to be based, because some of them, just using as an example, figure skating and cross-country skiing and a couple others, there's only 1 program for them. So those options will be offered by the areas that are doing it on an as-needed basis. Special Olympics Maryland will assist if they need help in terms of identifying, who could potentially do it. In many cases, they have the expertise there. Sailing, as an example, the sailing management team with Lynn and Dan Flanagan and many other folks have the expertise there to give sailing coaches instruction as needed. Same thing goes with our folks on the equestrian program and several others. I don't want to necessarily just stick with them. So this will be offered, and again, all of these will be available prior to the start of the season, so that folks have those options that are available there. This slide is almost identical to what's been offered before, but here's just examples of what could be offered for a sports-specific training in addition. So we've got the ones that we're offering, but also live, online. The Human Kinetics courses, again, that used to be ASAP. And hopefully folks know that Special Olympics Maryland offers a reimbursement for Human Kinetics and any other pre-approved online course. Typically, it's about $20 that we'll reimburse. You need to provide proof that you've successfully completed the course. And then some area programs, those who have enough financial resources to do so, some provide additional financial assistance and reimbursement for their coaches. Not all areas are in a financial situation to be able to do that. So if your area can't do that, that might be an indication that they could use some assistance from you in helping to raise funds. So perhaps at some point in the future, they can consider offering that support as well. There's a series of NFHS courses live and online, NGB, so on down the line. We've offered these master coach sessions for some sports for the very experienced coach. Just had one recently, I believe, for basketball. Again, serving as an instructor. And then we're open to suggestion for any other online course or other course period that might help. Coaching in general, again, you see them listed there. We've listed a number of those. I can tell you, since we offered this we rolled the initial version of this out 5 or 6 years ago, we only had one person come forward and say, hey, I've got this other course, can I utilize it? I'm not sure why. And we did approve it. In fact, actually, it was a teacher who had to take a course to continuing education course for her certification as a teacher. And it matched up, the topic and the content matched up with with coaching or help with that. Again, we needed to look at it and approve it, but we certainly did. So that's an option as well. Again, I showed you this when we went on the coach resource page, but these are the current ones. We have a few that have been added. I think just today, kayaking got added as well. So these are ones that are offered right now. Again, we'll send the slides out after the session tomorrow night, and you'll get it. But they're also available. It's a great reason to go to the coach resource page. These are the courses that are available from Human Kinetics. I do need to go through and confirm all of them are still available, and the pricing on there. I spot checked a few of them, and the prices were still matched up with that. Do note, though, that these courses are designed for either youth or other coaches, and you may need to make some adaptations, if you will, to apply them to coaching Special Olympics athletes with this. So they're great in terms of general knowledge for those sports, and then again, you can just adapt them as see fit. Using coaching Special Olympics athletes as a means to make that adaptation is an excellent opportunity. So for additional questions and such, we'll look through what we have right now. But the sport directors who are listed there are available. I mentioned about the coach resource page, which hopefully folks got the message there. And then in addition, if you just because this is easy to remember, your coaches@somd.org, that email comes in to Dottie Rush, who is our registration coordinator, and she makes sure that it gets to any question or inquiry gets to the right person here. And so that's the last slide. So let's look and see what folks have. Questions they've keyed in. So Anna Eiler, with the general orientation, you've asked your county about this and no one knows what it is. Can we please explain what this is? Okay. So if you, this is available as an online, I'm not sure where the link is, but we'll need to find that. It sounds like not all the areas are doing this on a regular basis, and we'll need to address that. It's basically an overview of Special Olympics. Again, several states, and I believe Maryland has this online. It's for all volunteers, not just sport volunteers. And yeah, depending upon the content, it can take 15 minutes to take it. It's a one-time thing. You don't need to take it. There's no renewal for that, unlike the other things. So thank you. We'll investigate that. So when you say unified, does this include IUS in high schools or community-based? Here we're talking community-based. We have a similar but separate coach training, set of coach training requirements actually for the IUS or Interscholastic Unified Sports coaches. Those model that's built based on the high school sport or coach requirements. They actually need to renew all of their stuff every year. So certainly, if you go to one of the trainings that are offered for
an IUS sport, and we've been advertising them as they come up. There's usually a couple of them for the beginning of the season. The sports that apply to that are tennis in the fall. We do indoor bocce, and strength and conditioning really doesn't match up with it, but indoor bocce matches with bocce. And then in the spring, there's outdoor bocce and team track and field, but the coaching courses that are offered for the track and field match up with anything that a track coach from our community program would match. So that's available there. But the actual certification requirements are a little different because, again, they model or they follow what a high school coach is required to do. Lynn, so please confirm how locally popular sports. So those will go to the area, but that's a great question because I know that Lynn Flanagan with sailing takes great pride and does an exceptional job keeping track of that. We can certainly work that out to make sure that you get a report of for anybody who's associated with sailing and can make that happen. Do we have the URL for HK training? We will make sure that you get it. It used to be acep.com, but again, they changed their name. Yeah, Scott, thanks for asking that. We'll get that back. Anna, I'm not sure what you mean. You asked the question, is this protective behaviors? I'm not sure what you mean by that. So if you can clarify. And Scott, yes, the deck will be sent out. I'm not going to send it out tonight because we may make a couple tweaks after tomorrow night's session. Like, I know I found a couple things that need to be typos that need to be adjusted here. So we'll send that out after tomorrow night's session. Content's going to be the same. You don't need to attend it, but it just makes sense to do it all at once. Kim, how you doing? Sorry, Kim and I coach track together. Let's see. As some high school students that we consider assistant coaches, will they need to take the certification? If you're going to be considering them coaches, yes, we would need to have them do that certification, and they may get some school credit for that as well. Again, it would either be coaching Special Olympics athletes or coaching unified sports. If you don't want them to be recognized as a coach or have that name, they can be a sport assistant or a sport volunteer, which would not require that. So Scott, when you say awesome, are you talking about me or the answer? I'm not sure. I see Anna. Anna's asking, is the general orientation also known as protective behaviors? No, that's something different. Protective behaviors is specifically about, it takes about 10 minutes to do. It's specifically about protecting the athletes, not exclusively, but primarily around any kind of sexual predator or risk associated with that. The general orientation is, again, it's a one-time thing, but it goes through the whole philosophy of Special Olympics, the concept of divisioning, and so on down the line. It sounds like there's some areas, and that's something we'll need to work on, and we will get that in. We're not going to certainly not going to hold you accountable for something that you can't do because your area isn't offering it. So we will fix that and make sure that the online version of it, it's not a super entertaining recording, but it is a straightforward thing. We'll make sure that that's available within the next couple weeks for that as well. Okay. Kim, let's, in terms of the specifics for those students, let's talk offline on that to see what we need to do. Thanks, Scott. The Unified Partners, for the purposes of this model, they are volunteers, but they're not sports volunteers. The Unified Partners they're competitors, and so they would only need the general orientation once we figure out what's going on as far as that goes, as well as the volunteer screening and the protective behaviors. Unified Partners would not need to do the concussion. Can't hurt to do it, but it's not necessary. So Kim's asking, will the trainings be offered prior to May 6th? Yes, actually, and not to pick track, but you guys know I'm a track geek. Oops, sorry. There is one scheduled, hosted by, that's the webinar. There's a webinar for athletics training, and I said that the preseason webinars don't count. This one on February the 12th is offered, and it's indicated as a coach training webinar. Similar, there's a bocce one and such. So that's there. Then I know Bill Wood is hosting one. Yep, here it is on the 16th at Towson. I think the details on that have nailed down. So those of you who know Bill Wood, he is Maryland's track god. Actually, there's another athletics one here, cheer. Anna and her team have put together one. This is a webinar-based one. There's a live one. Here it is, the cheer coaches. So that's March 2nd. So again, this slide will go out as a slide, but this is available right now on the Special Olympics coaches or Special Olympics Maryland coach resource page that I indicated. And if you don't remember the URL, just go to our website, click coaches, and you can get right to it. I don't want to promise when this will happen, but one of my goals for that page is to have a real honest-to-God calendar on there that you can get to. And also, we'll be developing, using some upcoming things, sports-specific segments, so that if you're a track coach, everything that you need for track is available here. If you're a softball coach, similar. So all the webinars there, links to the sport rules, links to the national governing body rules, links to other resources. If it's team sport, we'll post your, like, softball, basketball, so on. We'll post the schedules, the competition schedules for competitions throughout the season, so on down the line, trying to make it as much as possible a one-stop shop by sport. It's not something we can do snapping our fingers. It's going to be a process where we've got some mock-ups right now for basketball and for the two winter game sports, and hopefully we'll have at least, again, rudimentary things up for the summer game sports in the next month or so. So let's see, Tasha, will there be training for bowling coaches? Absolutely. Again, those will be offered starting 3 months or so prior to the start of the bowling season. I know that Zach, who is the sport director for bowling, is putting them together, and we had one last, actually it was later, it was into the season, we want to move it all back, but Coach Wright from St. Mary's County offered one, Rob Wright, back in September, and I know Zach will be working with him and the rest of the bowling management team to offer those, so more to come. Scott, yes, just to confirm, attending the in-person training, if it's sports specific, matches or meets the sports specific training required for level 2 for a head coach. So yeah, and we'll keep you all posted as they go through. So Rennie's asking, if a team today does not offer unified teams but wants to in the future, does the head coach have to get certified first in unified in addition to the standard? Yes, that would be something, not to push everybody to the Coaching Unified Sports online course, but unlike the Coaching Special Olympics athletes, the Coaching Unified Sports is only an hour, and it's available for free. Yeah, going forward, that would be the requirement, so that they're certified as a unified. And quite honestly, one of the reasons that that's a particular concern is that we've had issues with coaches of unified sports, in some cases not really understanding the philosophy and approach of that. In fact, we have a task force that Melissa Anger is chairing, moving forward on how to address issues of meaningful involvement in the team unified sports. So we've got that there. That, I think, is the end of the questions. Kim has her hands up. Kim, see, trying to open up your line, Kim, and looks like you're self-muted, Kim, so you should be able to turn off your mute. Oh, you turned it down. Okay, Janet? Janet, your line should be open. Janet Larimore, are you there? Don't hear you talking, so there might be an issue there. Let's try one more with Mr. Brocious.
Good evening.
Okay, good.
You've done a great job on this. I'm really pleased with it. My question, it's not a question, what I would like to see is a clearer presentation of what divisioning is many times and how it affects people in competition, how they're placed in competition according to the divisioning. I think that's a kind of a vague thing that probably should be more emphasized during each of the either in-person thing or as we get certified for coaching a thing. I make a point when I'm giving the in-person lesson on kayaking about the fact that the speed of the boat doesn't make any difference. It's the divisioning levels it all out.
Yeah, that's certainly something we can be sure is on the agenda for at least the kind of introductory versions of the sport specific. The other thing that we can do, I don't think it's listed here, but in terms of a sport specific course or a general course here, officials training, games management training would apply. So officials for sport specific, but games management in general would approve here. And we could even, if we think that there's value, do a deep dive on how to actually do divisioning. I know that that can be one of the greatest challenges that folks may have in hosting a competition is, they're scared to death of doing the divisioning. I got to tell you, it's not magic, but there are some things to go by. So great idea, Jack. We'll see what we can do on that. Janet, looks like you typed in, if a coach has both unified and traditional, can they just take the unified course or do they need to take both? So if they're, we're not going to require you to do that both right away. So if they're already certified in the sport, and this is renewal, they take one or the other. That's fine. And I should also point out, so as an example, a conversation exchange with Bob Baker over the last 2 days led to the tweak that we made of clarifying that there's a general volunteer level still. I'm sure we're going to be making some adjustments going forward. So we can see if that becomes too onerous for some folks. So hopefully that answers your question. Shelley is asking how will reimbursement be handled for the online courses? For reimbursement from Special Olympics Maryland, the person needs to send forward a proof of payment and the course completion. If they're taking something from Human Kinetics or it used to be ASAP, they get a thing that says that they completed the course and what date it was. And they'll have a receipt from that, and then we'll do the reimbursement. I have to be honest and tell you, I don't know offhand how it's done for those areas who are have the financial resources to do additional reimbursement. I know our folks in finance have that, but we can certainly work out. I think in terms of what the coach does, the submission is the same, but we'll clarify that. So good question. Okay. Any other questions? Great. Well, thank you. Hopefully this is educational and useful. We'll be looking for feedback as we go forward. We're excited about the opportunities that this presents. Again, we'll be looking for nominations or recommendations from areas for additional folks to be able to teach coaching Special Olympics athletes. Similarly, we'll be doing the same thing for the coaching unified sports as well, and move forward with that. But thank you much. I'm sure many more questions are going to come up. If you have them, you can either send them directly to me or send them to the coaches@somd.org. I will just warn you that for the next 3 days, we're going to be a little bit busy with the plunge, which is looking to be great. If you don't have a team already, come on out and sign up. And hopefully many of you are on your area's teams that are where, if you didn't know it, if the area has a team that they've put together, they get 70% of the revenue after some expenses. But 70% of the revenue, it's a no risk, can't lose opportunity to raise some money. So look forward to seeing you all out there, and thank you much. Have a great rest of your evening. Good night.